consciousness equals energy equals matter. And that would give you the full spectrum. For consciousness is what the one is and what is used as the main engine to form anything within all that is. And like in a hologram, every single element within all that is contains the knowledge of the whole. That means if there is a dream, a concept within the one that hints towards the direction of physical reality, it will dream itself into existence. And that every single element, every single cell in your realm, therefore contains the information of the whole. Every single physicalized cell contains the information, the entire journey, you could say, from physical back, quote unquote, to non-physical. But everything is happening right here and now. You could say, in the metaphor of water often used along these lines, the ice, the water, the steam are all coexisting, side by side, parallel in every single here and now. And the steam bridges, you could say, to the non-physical elements that have decided to become the particles inside the steam. Slowing that down, you get the water. Slowing that down, you get the ice. Your physical reality in this metaphor would refer to the ice. Now, why would a dream go into this particular shape? Why would consciousness dream of being physical? There is a really good reason for that. And although we understand that many of you often think that you have been cut off from your non-physical source, the unconditional love, in fact, being focused in ice, in that sense, as a metaphor, brings you a beautiful gift of, within that span of time-space reality that comes with such a strong densification, to discover elements of yourself in a much, much, much more focused manner. Within your physical dream, you are constantly offered a variety of probabilities, and you use your consciousness that flows through you, that connects you to your non-physical self 24/7 at all times. You use your consciousness to shift and sort throughout an infinite amount of probabilities to pick the one that you believe in that moment resonates most with you, and to act upon that. And that action, dear friends, is the anchoring, the solidifying, the creating of your physical reality in itself. You are all the co-creators, the goddesses of the dimension that you believe yourself to be living in. You are, you could say, sitting in your own higher selves reality bubble. 360 degrees projection all around you that you have created based on your own beliefs. What goes and what doesn't go within your frame of probabilities. Picking whatever resonates most and seeing the results of that. Because within this particular game, you will get the next step and the next step and the next step, but one step at a time. And that is typical for the ice because it will be very focused. Now, where you are today, you are, as you may have heard, in this now much more popular word of ascension, your time of ascension. And that means, roughly speaking, that the energy frequency of your planet and everything on it is rising. This means that the ice is, in a sense, beginning to defrost, and that you are introducing yourself to the state of water. Now, the best place, in a sense, to look at, to point at for us as an example in this metaphor, for all of you to begin to recognize that you have always been and never left the state of water or steam or non-physicality, for you right now would be your dreams. When you focus inward, dreaming while you sleep, or daydreaming even, is in a sense plunging a part of yourself into the water. Because there things can happen at an immeasurable speed, much different from your physical reality as you see and sense it with your physical senses around you right here, right now. Where you can only take, quote unquote, one step at a time. But you all know you can think about a dozen things in the back of your head while you're taking this one physical step at a time. And that thinking, that shifting and sorting throughout immense amount of possibilities, that is your water state already right there. Now, what dreaming does for you in your physical realm, it is the reconnection, the tuning in with your non-physical self. It is the way of your rational, mental, focused mind to recharge, to refresh, to reset itself so that it can be clear and sharp again when it, quote unquote, returns its focus into your physical reality. This is why, by the way, people can go for a very long time without sleep, but you cannot go without dreaming very long before you'll go insane. This has been researched by your scientists, and we don't recommend you try it, but if you feel excited about it, go right ahead. You'll get pretty wobbly. You will find that you need to recharge, to retune in with your own higher self, in that sense, the non-physical part of you. And by dreaming, that is what you do. You give your physically oriented mind, your rational mind, a break from being so strongly anchored in this physical reality so that it can start anew with you the next day. This is why the term "I'll sleep on it for a night" often indeed brings a lot more bright insights than if you force yourself to make decisions on the spot. Now, your indigenous people were very, very aware of this. The Aborigines, for instance, in Australia, even call what they understand to be their furthest history that they can recall from stories that have been passed over through generations to generations. They call that time the dream time. They remember from passing on knowledge that there must have been, linearly speaking, because everything is here and now, but that there must have been, linearly speaking, a moment where Earth was created, coming from a dream and kick-starting itself in a very dreamlike manner, before everything slowed down to the pace, the solidification that you are experiencing much more right now, or have been experiencing in the past few thousands of your years. Now this is beginning to loosen up a little bit, so you could say that there is a kind of cycle, although never repeating or bringing you back to a point in the so-called past. But there is a cycle where now yet again you are moving into a more dreamlike state, or some of you at least are, because you have free will in all of this and you get to choose whether you wish to navigate into that direction or rather not. No, thank you. So where we are speaking from right now with you, we find ourselves in quite a watery, liquid state in that sense. Compared to your world, time is not at all what it seems to be to you. And this is easy to explain looking at this water metaphor. Because, as you can imagine, within ice, things move a lot slower, one molecule at a time. It moves a little to the left and a little to the right, maybe. When it begins to defrost and it dissolves into water, suddenly there is flow, there is stream, things are moving all around. And time, all of a sudden, becomes a lot more slippery. in the water, if you would imagine yourself for a second to be one of the molecules in there, you will meet up with other molecules quite organically, quite quickly. You don't even have to introduce yourself. There they are. It will run by you, flow through you and through you much more effortlessly. And now imagine that you would heat up the water and you would become steam. And you're one of the molecules in the steam. And the steam maybe came from just one cup of tea. But as it evaporates, the steam may fill the entire room. And the steam is still connected. It is still the water. It still has the same, in that sense, source. But that water can, you could say, take in very rapidly a very big amount of information because it has expanded so far. And it has a wonderful overview on top of the water, on top of perhaps still in the room ice. And so you see that when you move into a higher energy frequency and away from slower densification, there is a bigger, you could say, access to infinite knowledge immediately there for you. And it doesn't take as much, quote unquote, time as you think things need to take now in your creation of the idea of time and the way you have decided, agreed upon the counting of it. So, in your ascension, you're moving to a much more watery state, and you're beginning to remember what the Aboriginals and many indigenous people of your world already knew and still do know. They understood that throughout the ages, as they kept up their original knowledge and passed it on, they understood that dreams are the glue between physical, you could say, elements, time snippets, that the dreams are what keep it all together. A good example of this, for instance, is the idea of a memory. When you right now choose to remember a specific event that had a very strong impact on you, happy, sad, no matter what, you know that when you focus very strongly back, quote unquote, into that event, that you can completely embody that energy frequency again, that you can feel the emotions again, that perhaps while sharing that event with a friend, your voice will begin to tremble. Who knows how moved you can get by tuning back into that energy. Now, that event is quote unquote in the past, but it is because of, you could say, dream matter, dream energy, that glue that we spoke about earlier, that non-physical glue, that you connect that one moment with where you are right now, that you bring it in the way you do as you share it, as vividly when you choose to share it that way. The indigenous people understood that this is a choice, that you choose to glue certain moments together. Call them the past and or the future. Because the same goes for a plan that you have perhaps made for yourself somewhere end of next week, and you get all excited right here, right now, because you're going to do that. That is you tuning in with another time frame and binding it to you with what we would call dream material. It is your intention, it is that non-physical reality that you're tuning in with in that moment and that you are using to create your linear perception of time. And you're beginning to wake up to that. Not only are more people than ever beginning to, in a sense, lucid dream, more people than ever are using tools to wake up to a bigger perspective, more of a steam perspective of their eyes reality. They're beginning to defrost themselves and step into the flow, the bigger flow of all that is, remembering where they are, quote unquote, coming from, in a sense, really, what they are still and always have been connected to. Waking up to that is what we call the ascension. Remembering that. Remembering, coming back together as members of one tribe in that knowledge, in that remembrance. Now, the indigenous people understood that the dream material, the non-physical layer, quote unquote, within all that is, bridges not only separate time frames in your reality, It also bridges energetic beingness from one to another. Very practically speaking, for them, for their own survival, and to understand what plants, for instance, had healing abilities, what berries could be eaten and which would be poisonous for them. But also how to communicate with the earth, how to communicate even with what you call your climate, the weather elements. You are quite familiar, all of you, most of you, with the idea of a rain dance. They understood how to get into kind of a trance state, to get closer, to amp up their own energy frequency to that non-physical universe where rain was already there. And they were dancing in a rain that they perceived to be there in that moment of dancing, to call it in. Because they understood what you now call this new discovery or rediscovery of the law of attraction. Doesn't necessarily work the way it is put, but you understand the phrase. They understood the actual mechanics of that. They brought themselves deliberately to a dream state, traveled beyond your physical boundaries, to tune in with that layer, so that it could be passed on through, so that it could materialize in your energy density. The same is happening very rapidly for you right now on your planet.